Have you ever wondered if it's really possible to pass the NCLEX on your first attempt, even as a Nigerian nurse? Well, I did. Clock it. And on today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you exactly how I prepared, the mistakes to avoid, the lessons that I've learned, and the resources that I've used in order to pass my NCLEX. Hi everyone, my name is Goreti. I'm a registered nurse and midwife practicing currently in Nigeria. I'm also a registered nurse in the United States of America. On this channel, I bring to you topics on nursing, career growth, international nursing opportunities, and migration. So, if you're interested in any of those topics, do well to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on any of my videos. Like many nurses, I had the dream of expanding my nursing experience internationally, and passing the NCLEX was my biggest challenge. Reason being that I wanted to practice in the United States of America. When I started preparing, I was excited, but at the same time, I was nervous because I've heard stories, and if you keep your ears to the ground, I'm sure you too must have heard stories of how people fail the NCLEX and write it, have to take it multiple times before they can pass it. So with all those stories, I was filled with anxiety, and I didn't know what to expect, but I was optimistic. I was determined that if people are actually passing this exam, I will definitely pass. And there are people that have passed on their first attempt, and I'm definitely going to be one of them. That gave me hope and courage to pursue my dream. I took the NCLEX June of 2025, precisely on the 13th of June 2025. And this month being June makes it exactly 1 year of me passing my NCLEX. It took me exactly 72 days to prepare for the NCLEX because Texas Board of Nursing gives you only 75 days after you receive your ACT. So I started studying once I had gotten my ATT and booked my exam. And I booked my exam 72 days away. That was how long I studied for the NCLEX. One thing that really stood out for me was consistency. I was consistent. I was working and also was a new time mom then. I gave birth January of 2025 and wrote my exam, my NCLEX, June. That means I started preparing around April. So you know how hectic it can be for a new mom and a working mom as well. It was hectic, but I had to do it. I had to do it for myself and for my family, particularly for myself. It was draining preparing for the NCLEX, but I believe that if I was able to prepare, write it, and pass it in first attempt, anyone else can actually do it, including you watching me. Consistency really helped me because from work, I go to the library to study. Even days that I do not go to work, I still go to the library to study. It really, really helped me a whole lot. I also focused on understanding the concepts rather than memorizing. I focused on my areas of weakness because the resource that I use, which I'm going to be mentioning in it, was analyzing the areas that I had most challenge with. It to analyze it and tell me my area of weakness. And those areas of weakness, I focused more on it and prepared more because there is no need reading something that I'm already conversant with, whereas there are areas that I'm not too conversant with. So it really helped me to focus more on my areas of weakness. Whenever I got a practice question wrong, what I do is I sit down and calmly read through the rationale. Why did I get it wrong? What is the precise reason why I got it wrong? I try to understand the reasoning behind it rather than just reading and memorizing it. There is no need to memorize once you've understood something. So basically, I used Archer. Archer is a question bank which I use. However, I can categorically tell you that no resource, um no question bank will actually prepare you for what the NCLEX is. NCLEX is NCLEX. However, some of these resources can actually help you out to know what to expect or how the questions are being structured. However, NCLEX is NCLEX, and that is why understanding matters more than memorization, because what you see on your Q banks is not what you're going to see on your NCLEX. At least that was my own personal experience. I also listened to Mark K. Mark K has 12 lectures and it's free on Spotify. I don't know if it's still available on Spotify, but as of the time I was preparing, it was on Spotify, and that was where I listened to Mark K lectures. These are my two biggest resources. On Archer, I listened to the 3 days course review on Archer. The 3 days course review was 7 hours long, and I listened to all of them, and it was really, really helpful. Another thing that really helped me a lot was making notes. I made lots of notes. I took down a lot of things because your notes will serve as your reference point whenever you maybe forget something or you are confused about a particular thing. Your note will be a reference point instead of digging through the internet and trying to find out something. You can easily refer back to your notes once you have taken a very good note. This is important. Taking notes while studying is extremely important. On the day of my exam, well, I was nervous. But however, I had to contain my nervousness. I had to bring it down a notch because I told myself I've prepared for this exam for a whole 72 days. I don't think there's any reason why I shouldn't pass it. So I went for my exam. Once I started writing, I was expecting my system to shut down at 85. And this is something else I need to tell you. The system didn't shut down at 85 doesn't mean you have failed. Okay? So when you're taking your exam, make sure you do not get your hopes too high. It's okay if your system shuts down at 85. But let me also remind you that your system shutting down at 85 doesn't necessarily mean you have passed. Sometimes it can also mean you have failed. However, once my system didn't shut down at 85, what I did was that I took a break. I took a break. Once I saw 86, I took a break to calm myself down and remind myself that I still had the opportunity to prove myself. So I went on and on and on and on and on. And I thought I was going to get the whole 150 questions, but I didn't. Finally, my system shut down at 130. Some of the questions were very much confusing. I was in doubt for some of the questions, whereas there are some questions that gave me the confidence. I was confident about some of them. But one thing that really helped me for each of the questions that I was confused about or that I found difficult was elimination. I just had to read the question thoroughly and eliminate the ones that I think or I know is wrong. And then from the remaining options, I now choose the safest answer possible. Because at the end of the day, the NCLEX is just trying to test if you can be a safe nurse. Can you practice safely as a nurse? That's what the NCLEX is trying to determine. Feeling unsure about your answers does not necessarily mean you failed. Okay? It doesn't necessarily mean you failed because so many of the questions you are gonna feel unsure about. Let me talk about what helped me. If I'm to narrow it down, what really stood out for me was consistency. That's number one. Being consistent with my study. I studied every single day, and I encourage you to also do that. Don't study today and skip tomorrow, or study this week and skip the following week. you may not do well unless if that works for you. The next thing is to also understand what works for me, because what works for me is not what works for others. For instance, I love to study alone. I once paid for a group class and I discovered I wasn't following. But there are people that actually benefit a lot from group classes. So I encourage you to do what works for you. The next one is do not use too many resources. It's going to confuse you and it's going to mess you up. Choose one or two resources and follow through with it. Make sure you finish the content or almost the entire content, the curriculum that is required of you. Of course, the NCLEX has curriculum, so make sure you master your curriculum. Another thing is focus on understanding rather than memorization. Focus on understanding the concepts and your rationale rather than memorizing. Then finally, believe in yourself. Self doubt will definitely come. You're definitely going to doubt yourself at some point, but believe that you've given it your best shot and take your exam confidently. The NCLEX is not designed to trick you. It is designed to determine whether you can make safe clinical decisions. Bear that in mind. My advice for anyone currently preparing for the NCLEX: one is do not compare your journey to someone else's. Someone might have gone and failed, doesn't mean you will go and fail, or you have to take it multiple times before passing. And if you have written and failed, it doesn't mean that if you go again you won't make it, or you have to take it third or fourth time before you pass it. Do not compare your journey with someone else's. Focus on understanding and not memorization. I can't emphasize on this enough. And then practice regularly. Practice every day. Be consistent with your practice. Review your mistakes carefully. Review it. And most importantly, believe in yourself. Believe that you can do it, because I did it on my first attempt and I believe you can too. I hope that sharing my experience with you have encouraged you to go and conquer that exam, the NCLEX. And if you really enjoyed this video, kindly give it a thumbs up and comment. Tell me where you're preparing your NCLEX from and the biggest issue or challenge that you're having. Thank you so much for joining and tuning in, and see you in my next video. Ciao.